Okay, as we enter a whole new day in trade, let's take a look at the global handover over the weekend. US futures are currently trending significantly higher. Dow futures are up 185 points. S&P and Nasdaq futures are up around 0.5% each. So definitely some positive action on the futures coming in. That's led to a very sharp recovery in Asia as well. Remember last week we saw a sell-off, right? So we saw the Dow shed 0.57% for its first negative week in 3. We saw the S&P fall 1% for its first negative week in 3. And we saw the Nasdaq lose nearly 1% for its first negative week in 4. So the upcoming week, market's going to focus on the Pfizer vaccine rollout, on the Federal Reserve policy meeting, and the stance is, of course, expected to remain accommodative for the markets. And then also just one key US event that we'd like to highlight for you is that Tesla joined the S&P on Friday, so keep your eyes out on that stock as well. Asia reacting positively to the futures this morning. In Japan, the Nikkei is up 0.70% in early trade and has not given up gains. The Topix is up 0.9%. The Kospi added 0.24% after recovering from a bit of a tough stint earlier on in trade. Australia also edging higher with the S&P ASX 200 up around 0.4%. So US futures showing a sharp recovery overnight from what we saw last week. Asian stocks trading upbeat this morning. The SGX Nifty for us currently showing a nice 50-60 point gap up open at around 13,582. European stocks, they were a bit low on Friday. They closed lower by around 0.8%, but let's see. They're expected to bounce back today as well, given the breadth we're seeing in Asia and the US. Telecom stocks, particularly in Europe, lost 3% on Friday, so keep an eye out on that sector. Maybe we'll see a rebound, but almost all your sectors and major bourses in Europe were in negative territory on Friday, so you might just see a broad-based recovery today if the US futures and Asian markets hold out. Now, two commodities we always do a check on, oil and gold. Let's remember, these are impacted by stimulus. These are impacted by reopening or a reinitiation of lockdown. So they're also impacted by the vaccine delivery. So oil saw majestic rise up, crossed $50 again. In fact, it went to $51 on Thursday, but then it cooled off slightly on Friday, and we actually finished 0.56% lower at $49.97 per barrel. So just below 50. WTI was 21 cents or 0.4% lower to settle at $46.57 per barrel. Gold rose on Friday, bucking the trend. Spot was up 0.3% to around $1,839.90 per ounce, so nearly $1,840. And then US gold futures settled up 0.3% to $1,844 per ounce. So even oil outlook has drastically improved. Of course, we've seen the reopening trade, and of course, things like aviation, tourism, they all contribute to oil demand outlook. So it seems that that is looking fairly robust. Precious metals, gold also, while still nearly 10% lower from their historic highs, which we saw a few months ago. Quite strong price action, holding firm at 1840. Let's see how this weekend trade kicks off here for us.